And it appears that it's time to call this meeting to order. Meeting of the Whitestone Plan Commission on Monday, May 11th. It is in our procedures to do the pledge. So let's begin with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Especially given our unique circumstances, staff call roll.
Matt Doublestein.
Present.
Andrew McGee.
Here.
Lauren Foley.
Present.
Sarah Ford.
Present.
Dave Taylor. Danny Powers.
Here.
And Steve Milstead.
Present.
I saw.
No, Dave's here. He's muted there. Maybe. All right, next is the approval of the agenda.
Matt, we need to do new member appointments.
Okay, yep.
Since Craig was the president and he no longer is on Plan Commission, we will need to nominate a new president and vice president. I know Matt has volunteered to be president. So if we want to make any nominations for president or anyone wants to volunteer to be vice president, please do so.
I'll go ahead and I'll volunteer if anyone has any objections or not.
For vice president,
Yes.
do we have anyone that wants to make a motion for Matt to be president and Andrew to be vice president?
I'll make a motion for Matt to be president and for Andrew McGee to be vice president.
Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
All right.
Opposed?
I will need to do a roll call vote for this.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Matt Doublestein,
Aye.
Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Lauren Foley,
Aye.
Sarah Ford,
Aye.
Dave Taylor. Dave said aye. Danny Powers
Aye.
and Steve Milstead.
Aye.
Thank you all, and thank you, Andrew. Okay, ready for the agenda now. I think we're ready for the approval of the agenda and consideration of continuances.
We do have some changes to the agenda. We are continuing item A. This is docket PC 20-009-DP. This is for Glasswater Creek development. We have had many residents as well as commission members express their comments for this docket item. We have found that it's in the best interest, as well as the petitioner requested, to continue. That way we are able to adequately review all of the questions we heard from the resident as well as the commission members. So that will be up again in next month's meeting in June. So once again, we will not be hearing docket PC 20-009-DP Glasswater Creek tonight.
Thank you. So I believe we'll need a motion to approve that agenda, and then also a second on approving last month's minutes. So we'll start with the new agenda. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the new agenda for this evening.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff, can you call roll on this one?
Matt Doublestein,
Aye.
Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Lauren Foley,
Aye.
Sarah Ford,
Aye.
Dave Taylor,
Aye.
Danny Powers,
Aye.
Steve Milstead.
Aye.
Thank you. Is there a motion on last meeting's minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the April minutes.
I second.
Motion and a second.
Matt Doublestein,
Aye.
Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Lauren Foley,
Aye.
Sarah Ford,
Aye.
Dave Taylor,
Aye.
Danny Powers,
Aye.
Steve Milstead.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Next up for us then are public comments for items not on the agenda. Are there any requests to speak on non-agenda items? Mr. Messer, did you receive any of those?
No, we have not received any, and the ones I've gotten for any agenda items we forwarded on, I believe those were all based on Glasswater and Main Street. Sorry, I realized I didn't.
Thank you. Okay. I don't have any presentations or unfinished business on the agenda.
I think John has something.
All right.
Mr. President, I would suggest that you announce for everyone watching here that those who are planning to speak this evening on the item, the Glasswater Creek item, which was agenda item A, but has been continued to the June 8th meeting, that they would be entitled to speak at next month's meeting when the public hearing will be held. So they're not going to lose their opportunity to weigh in if they wish to do so in the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I hope that was clear enough for anyone. Thank you, sir, for saying that. Yes, indeed. There'll be that opportunity again when that item comes up next month. Anything else before moving on? All right, the first item under new business then is actually item B, docket PC 20-012 DP CSL Plasma Building Expansion Development Plan.
If the people
And the,
I believe Greg Dempsey, is he presenting on this? Or Jerry Kittle?
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
yes, Greg.
This is Greg Dempsey.
all right.
I am
Please state your name and your role and
okay.
address, and here you go. We're ready to hear your presentation.
Okay. This is Greg Dempsey. I am with Innovative Engineering, 3961 Perry Boulevard, Whitestown, Indiana. Here this evening to talk about the CSL Plasma Building Expansion. It's located at 3810 Perry Boulevard, which is at the northeast corner of Perry Boulevard and State Road 267. The original building and site improvements were approved and constructed in 2016. The first phase of the building was approximately 68,250 square feet. It included 6 loading docks and parking for the original building, as well as the expansion. The proposed building expansion will be approximately 70,900 square feet. It will include an emergency access drive, which will loop around the north end of the building. There'll be an additional loading dock that'll be included as part of this expansion. As mentioned before, there's no additional parking needed for this expansion. All utilities will be extended internally from within the building, so there won't be any new utility connections. The site was granted Drainage Board approval at the April 20th Drainage Board meeting. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions or address any comments you may have.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Staff has checked the landscaping, buffering, lighting standards, and overall compliance within the Whitestown Unified Development Ordinance. Docket PC 20-012-DP CSL Plasma Building Expansions is within compliance.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this item?
I did not receive any public comment for this item.
Okay. Nate, do you have any requests there?
No, we do not have any requests.
All right, we'll close the public discussion. Any further remarks from the petitioner?
No.
Any discussion by the commission?
No questions.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve docket PC 20-012-DP for the CSL Plasma Building Expansion Development Plan.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Matt Doublestein,
Aye.
Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Lauren Foley,
Aye.
Sarah Ford,
Aye.
Dave Taylor,
Aye.
Danny Powers,
Aye.
Steve Milstead.
Aye.
Item passes. Thank you all. Moving on to item C, docket PC 20013DP, Whitestown Crossing, Lot 7, Block D Development Plan. Petitioner ready.
Who's set to speak on that one, Brittany?
I believe it's Eric or Jerry or Greg. I'm not for sure which one.
We'll go back to
That was Ken Franzen.
muted.
Or Kent Franzen, I'm sorry.
It's the item C.
Yeah.
Ken.
Yeah.
Okay. It isn't Jerry on that one. 1 second to find them.
Is the petitioner ready?
So Ken has been unmuted.
All right, did you not hear me before?
Nope, we got you now.
We had you muted still.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, let me start over. My name is Kent Franzen, and I represent Systems Builders, the applicant in this proceeding. It is seeking development plan approval for a roughly 3.5 acre parcel on Lot 7 owned by Whitestown Crossing. It will be a light industrial warehouse building being built on a spec basis. Therefore, we do not currently know who the tenants will be. The hope is that we'll have more than one tenant, but until we get the building up, it's hard to find committed users. It would be a building that would be not in excess of 40 feet in height. It would be roughly 442,000 square feet in size. It's on a 3.5 acre parcel. The property is zoned general business, and back in December of 2019, we obtained approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special exception for our proposed use. We also appeared before this Plan Commission in February with our concept plan, and it was approved at that time. The only issue that has ever really been before the Town of Whitestown zoning authorities in this matter deals with landscaping and buffering. There is existing mounding to the west that was put in several years ago. And just recently with the change in the weather, we were able to get landscaping plantings along that mound toward the top. Because of some concerns from Saratoga to the west, we did some experiments to show that the truck traffic, the headlights from truck traffic coming in and out of this facility would be substantially blocked by the mound to the west of the building. We have a landowner to the north of this property, Candace Smith, who has requested that we put a similar mound along her boundary line, the north boundary line of our property, the south boundary line of hers. The problem is, we've looked at this, we've gone to the county surveyor's office for permission to put some mounding in that area, but it's within a utility and drainage easement. And most of you are aware that the county drainage board and the surveyor's office are very defensive and particular about protecting those drainage easements and will not allow this sort of mounding to be put within the confines of the drainage easement. There simply isn't room for the sort of mounding that they have asked for. We are putting in landscaping along that boundary consistent with the zoning ordinance. When you have general business on one side and agricultural on the other, there's a very specific requirement for landscaping materials, the size, the numbers, the location. And our plan shows that we're going to put in 12 canopy trees, 24 understory trees, and 30 shrubs along that boundary line. That meets the requirements of the town of Whitestown Unified Development Ordinance. If the property owner to the north, Ms. Smith, would like additional buffering or barricading, she has land on her property, on her side of the boundary, to put up additional protections. But we are simply not in a position to do any more on our side, primarily because of the presence of the drainage and utility easement. We believe we have met all the requirements of the town's zoning ordinance and would like our development plan approval. Our lighting meets the requirements of the ordinance, our layout, traffic flows. The building will be an attractive building. And we'd like to get started sometime in 2020 and get this building built. I'm happy to answer any questions or respond to specific concerns that might be addressed either by members of the public or by staff or by Plan Commission members. But at this point, that's all the petitioner has to present.
Thank you. Is there a Jeff Jacob who's also a part of the petitioning body?
Jeff Jacob, I believe, represents Ms. Smith.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So that would be part of the public discussion then? Mr. Jacob, is that correct? Okay. Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Staff comments. Project received BZA approval for a special exception warehouse within general business zoning district. Project received WPC approval on 2/10/20 for common. Project is within compliance of the Whitestown Unified Development Ordinance. And on December 7th, developer held a residential information meeting. On January 7th, developer held a resident informational meeting with the residents in the surrounding area to get input and questions and comments regarding the petition.
Thank you.
And I do also have one public comment that was submitted to me by email. So when we do public comment for this section, I will also be reading that.
On to that portion, public discussion. Would you like to begin with that?
Yes. I received an email from a resident, Tiffany Howard, and I will be reading her inquiry regarding this petition. Her two main requests for this development plan are that it include a berm between it and Candace Smith's property to the north, that it not be developed until after the stoplight is installed at the intersection of Indianapolis Road and 267. They were told that this would be installed in April, and that they would like consideration taken in regard to building lighting not to be too bright, as the existing warehouses are very bright at night.
Thank you. And we have the request from Mr. Jacob, is that correct?
Yes, and he should be unmuted.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob.
Yes, thank you, members of the Plan Commission. For the record, my name is Jeff Jacob. I'm an attorney with Hackman Hewlett with offices at 1620 West Oak Street in Zionsville. I am speaking on behalf of Candace Smith and Kyle Wormuth, her son, and they have a property along 400 South. I was also just recently asked today to speak on behalf of Joanne Hunter. She is also a property owner to the north. So in effect, kind of orienting everyone, these individuals control or own the 4 homes on the south side of 400 South, just past the water tower to the west. And the properties are either all adjacent to the subject property, either to the north or to the west of the proposed project. And by way of background, I understand Mr. Francis' comments that he believes that this will be an attractive building. It's still going to be a warehouse next to residential area, and in fact, within pretty close proximity to properties. And so he did correctly indicate that the concerns have to do with light intrusion, and that a study was performed to address that, but really it goes beyond that. My client's concern goes to noise, security, trash, and generally buffering a light industrial use from a residential area. And so our request was initially, yes, please install mounding. Our request has also been to install on or near the mound a privacy fence to address not only light intrusion, but security, noise, and the like. And so that request remains. However, I think if you look at the development plan, and I understand Mr. Francis' comments, and appreciate some of the challenges of the site with the drainage easement. And yes, the county is very protective of those areas, but that drainage easement burdens this site, and they need to work around it accordingly. So hearing the concerns about installing mounding and indicating that there's not enough room, what our concern boils down to is while you have a light industrial use on the property, you have the loading docks on the west side of the facility. And so what you've done is in effect put the most intensive use closest to the residential uses and on that portion. And so what we would like the petitioner to do is to reorient the building, turn it 45 degrees, and restructure the loading docks on the southwest corner of the property with the parking for employees and the like, and the public scattered around the south side of the building and east side. We believe that given the intensity of the use of the truck traffic, that would help mitigate the intensity of the light industrial use from a residential and partially agricultural area. So we would ask that request be made, or that building orientation be considered by the Plan Commission and require the petitioner. If that's not in the alternative, our request for mounding and a privacy fence along the mounding on the north and west sides of the property, we do not believe is a unreasonable request, and would ask that the petitioner be required to install the same. Thank you.
Is there any additional public requests to speak?
Not seeing any in the request.
All right. Hearing none. Petitioner, would you like to share your closing remarks?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I understand Mrs. Smith's concern, and the hunters, we thought they were comfortable with the plan, and don't know exactly what may have caused them to change their mind today. But the fact of the matter is Mrs. Smith has bought her property, purchased her property since long after this project. This land has been rezoned to a commercial industrial type use. And she has moved into an area that is obviously commercial and industrial in nature. She may be living there currently, but she's not going to be living there for long. Her land is not suitable ultimately for residential uses without having the intrusion that she is complaining about. And we cannot reorient this building as proposed by Ms. Smith. We've looked at that. We've met with her, had neighborhood meetings. We just can't make it work given the confines of the site and the other limitations. And we just don't think that the ordinance requires the sort of mounding that she's wanting. The ordinance contemplates that you can have industrial and commercial uses backed up or adjacent to agricultural uses, which is what her property is zoned. And it calls for specific landscaping buffer. And we have more than met the requirements of the ordinance with regard to that landscaping. If she wants more than that, she has room on her property to arrange for it. We simply don't have room to do what she wants done. And we have tried to work with her and believe that we've mitigated the effects of the building from a landscaping and lighting. We are meeting the zoning ordinance requirements as far as light intensity. And we think we've met the requirements of the ordinance that would allow a development plan for this use on this property as rezoned for the almost commercial zoning, industrial zoning going on almost 10 years at this point. So that would be our response.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that, Petitioner.
Matt, I do have one thing from staff as far as Tiffany Howard, her question regarding the stoplight being installed. We were hoping that we would have this done by April. I inquired with the town manager today, and there is an issue with utilities, as well as we are working with IPL and NDOT to try to get control of the right-of-way. We're hoping we'll have this within the next 6 months, which should be before development would be up and functional and the fully running business. But right now we are still working on it, as the town believes this is another pressing matter that we want to get to, but we are working hard with IPL and NDOT to get everything corrected with easements and right-of-way.
Thank you.
It does appear, Mr. Chairman, that it would take about 8 months to build the building if we started immediately. The plan is to start when the economy will allow us to start. So it's not likely this project will start before summer or even late summer. So as a practical matter, it's going to be early 2021 before there's any occupants in this building. So that surely would be enough time to get that stoplight if that is something the town is concerned enough about that they would hold up this project.
All right, thank you very much. We've reached the end of our public hearing then, and are there any questions or comments from members of the commission?
My question was answered. It was in regard to the stoplight status. So thank you, Brittany.
I have a question for the petitioner. I did hear your statements about the inclusion of the berm. I heard staff talk about the stoplight. There was also a concern about the light brightness sensitivity from the site. What conversation or work have you done with the neighbors in that regard?
Sir, there was some reverberation on the sound system. I couldn't make out your question. Could you repeat yourself?
Yeah, sorry, but I'm getting a little bit of that myself. My question is just about that third item that I heard about light brightness sensitivity, the sensitivity of the brightness of the lighting from the site. What conversations have you had with residents or with others about that?
Jerry Kittle of Innovative Engineering is on the phone with us. Jerry, can you give them any particulars about the lighting? I know it meets the ordinance requirements, but can you provide any additional information about the exterior lighting? Sure.
Well, good evening. Jerry Kittle with Innovative Engineering. Our office is here in Whitestown, and as design engineer on this particular project, the lighting plan has been submitted and reviewed by the town of Whitestown. It is the use of parking lot lighting in the use of wall packs on the building, so there are no exterior poles, which certainly limits our light. They are all downward throwing type lights, so they are directed downward. There are no lights on the north side of the building at all against the neighbors, the Hunters and the Smiths. So those there's no lights on purpose in this design for this particular project there. As Mr. Franson has also alluded to during the concept plan, we submitted some discussion about headlights and showed some illustrations, those you have in your files, that show that the mound is shielding those lights from going into the neighbors. So you see we've contained the lighting program very much to the perimeter of the building. And so therefore it meets and exceeds and will produce very little light glare to the neighbors in the surrounding areas.
Thank you. Are there any more questions, comments, or otherwise from commission members?
I've got one thing for Mr. Jacobs, or not Mr. Jacobs, for Mr. Kittle and you guys, the petitioner. Being so close to the residential areas, I'm going to have to ask that we are very strict as far as the times that we start working and the times that we are done working. We've had issues in the past with this, and I will be keeping an eye on that to make sure that we are adhering to those work hours.
I certainly understand, and we can't expect to receive any special favors on that. Do you know what the town's ordinances specifically provide on that issue?
Yes, I can get that information for you.
Well, we are not asking for a variance in any respect, so my client is prepared to have his tenants live with those requirements unless they could convince someone to allow a variation. The burden would be on us to seek that, and we don't anticipate asking for that.
Anything further from the commission?
Mm-mm.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve docket PC 20-013-DP Whitestown Crossing Lot 7 Block D Development Plan.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
You're unmuted, Brittany.
Thank you, Nathan. Matt Doublestein. Andrew McGee.
Aye.
Lauren Foley.
Aye.
Sarah Ford.
Aye.
Dave Taylor.
Aye.
Danny Powers,
Aye.
Steve Milstead, Steve, that might be frozen.
Got cut off.
Steve, are you there? I think we might be having some connection issues with Steve. Yep, I think we had some connection issues. So we will have to move forward, but just so everyone knows, since Matt and I are kind of in the same room, there are some echo. So when I do roll call, when I call Matt's name, he will let me know since I'm in the same room. We just are trying to prevent echo between the two of us.
What was that vote on?
So we have, I'm gonna go ahead and say we have a 6-0, just because we're having some technical difficulties with Steve.
Steve just messaged me. He's trying to get back in and having trouble. Sorry, Matt. There you go.
Thank you, sir.
It's hard to find in the list. It gets bouncing every time somebody joins in. It resets the whole list.
Got it. All right, thank you. So that's moving on then to item D on the agenda, correct? This is docket PC 20014TA, Golf Club of Indiana, PUD text amendment. All right. Is the petitioner ready?
Yes, Mr. President. Evening. My name is Matt Price, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Pulte Homes and Lennar, and I have with me on the meeting Dave Compton from Pulte and Keith Lash from Lennar, should the Plan Commission have any questions for us this evening. First one to say how appreciative we are of holding the meeting in this format and allowing business to continue, and appreciative in that same vein for being able to work with staff to get to this stage this evening. Just to give a little bit of background, this text amendment pertains to a PUD that was originally adopted a little more than 20 years ago by Boone County, and then it's been subsequently updated in recent years through some amendments. And our amendments, proposed text changes to the PUD, pertain to really two exhibits that are connected with the current PUD ordinance, and a statement relating to one of those exhibits. So let me kind of take them in order for you to simplify things a little bit. The first amendment is to remove a requirement for a through street between Whitestown Parkway and County Road 750. As you all are aware, the Whitestown Thoroughfare Plan, in its current format, I think adopted most recently in 2018, brought current through 2018, has two other north-south connectors that are both of a similar service level and proposed both west and east of the golf course community. And so what we're seeking to do is to really maintain the integrity of the golf course community itself, rather than calling for a collector street to be built through the middle of it. We also, as the development and knowledge of this site has evolved, much of it is encumbered by floodplain. It's what makes it really suitable for a golf course in many respects, but it significantly complicates the ability to construct a through street if that was something that would be desirable to do. And so given the other alternatives that have been contained and set forth in the thoroughfare plan, and with the current knowledge of the land itself, it just seems to make sense to formally remove that requirement through these amendments. And then secondly, we've proposed some what I'll call updates or modernization to the subdivision guidelines that are contained in the PUD ordinance. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One item that we wanted to do, and we've added a sentence to this effect, is to assure that the residential construction that occurs within the PUD is done to the 2020 residential building code. So we have drafted an amendment to assure that construction is to current code as opposed to some of the legacy references that were in the text from prior years. We've also made some updates, I think, that significantly improve those guidelines with regard to the requirements for the creative use of windows in residential structures, modern roof design, and expanding the type of roof architectural attributes that can be incorporated into a dwelling. And then lastly, we have made some adjustments to contemplate that there are two residential builders of great reputation seeking to undertake this project. And so we've made some corresponding adjustments, I would say, to modernize those guidelines throughout the document. So I think with that, I can close, and Keith, Dave, and I would be available to answer any questions that you have. And again, we thank you for the opportunity to present this evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak? Oh, I'm sorry. Staff report. Forgive me. Nate, can you unmute Brittany?
It could be unmuted.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. All right, so just a reminder to the commission, what we'll be doing for this, instead of giving a approval or denial, we'll vote to give a positive or negative recommendation for council to make the final adoption for this. Decision guidelines is per the zoning ordinance. The WPC and town council shall pay reasonable regard to the following 5 decision criteria when taking action on zoning and text amendments request. They shall take into account the comprehensive plan, the current conditions and character structures and usage of each district, the most desirable use for the land in each district is adapted, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdictional area, and reasonable development and growth. Staff has met with the developer and has reviewed the development plans has reviewed the text amendment, and it does meet all requirements. And then I also do have, Matt, we did have one public comment for this. I had received a public comment from a Brian Johnson, and regarding PC 20-14-TA, they said, first, will the developer be required to install sidewalks along County Road 750, Whitestown Parkway, and from the golf course to Whitestown Parkway? This should be a requirement of the developers as the town grows and improves the walking and biking options of our city at the cost of others. And the second thing they stated was, if sidewalks are not required, can the Plan Commission take an action item to discuss this at further meetings to require developers to connect the town to provide alternate methods of transportation? And that was all. I will go ahead and address this, that they are required. We do have, for the developers, for the sections of this, they do have a walking path that is getting installed along County Road 750, 475 East, as well as Whitestown Parkway. And to address their second question, we have internal review meetings and a technical advisory committee meetings within the town, and every development that goes in is being required to install either a sidewalk or a walking path along with their development.
Thank you, Brittany. And for that public comment, are there any additional public comments or requests to speak on this item? Nate, I want to make sure we haven't missed anybody.
No, we don't have anyone else message me to speak.
Thank you, sir. All right, then we'll close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the members of the commission?
Mr. President, I don't know if it's necessary, but Mr. Price may want to take an opportunity to address the comment that Brittany had read.
Can you hear me okay?
Sure, that'd be great. Mr. Price?
Yes, no, I was nodding, but let me say affirmatively on the record that we concur with staff's comment, and actually one of the parts of this project that's very, very attractive and an important asset to the community is the pedestrian and bike connectivity that it will provide through this PUD vehicle. So it's a very strong component of the project. I'm glad we had an opportunity to address that this evening.
Thank you. Anything further from commission members?
Mr. Price, I'm just curious about the status of this project as far as a timeline. I'll be honest, I get asked about this project. There's some interest in it, and so I'm just kind of curious if there's any kind of timeline in place. I know sometimes that's difficult, but what are you thinking?
I'm with you. It is a matter of public interest because I think there's a great amount of anticipation. If I could maybe put him on the spot, could we ask if Dave Compton, my client from Pulte, could maybe address to that? Well, he just texted me and said we hope to break ground this fall. So
I've unmuted Dave also.
Okay.
There's thanks, Matt and Nathan. Sarah, we're very anxious to get started. We're working with the town in finalizing primary plant construction plan approval, as well as other governmental agencies, including our friends at IDNR, to finalize some permits necessary in phase one with them. So as soon as those are in line, we're very anxious to get started on the project and very excited about it.
Thank you.
Dave or anyone else, have you had a chance to look at those? In particular, I mentioned those window and roof guidelines. Anyone have any questions or thoughts about those? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I make a motion to, or what are we doing? We're actually just saying we're in favor of it, correct?
Motion for recommendation.
Okay. I make a motion for recommendation in favor of docket PC 20-014- TA Golf Club of Indiana PUD text amendment.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And roll call vote, please.
Matt Doublestein.
Aye.
Andrew McGee.
Aye.
Lauren Foley.
Aye.
Sarah Ford.
Aye.
Dave Taylor.
Aye.
Danny Powers.
Aye.
Steve Milstead.
Aye.
And passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moving on then to item E, docket PC 20-017CP, Fairfield Inn, Anson North. The petitioner ready?
Who was the petitioner on that one?
Brian Cross.
Brian Cross is now unmuted.
Hi, thank you. Brian Cross with Civil Site Group, offices at 160 West Carmel Drive, Carmel, Indiana, Suite 240. Tonight, I'm here on behalf of the petitioner, Hospitality Project Services. We're proposing a 82-room hotel on the Anson development. This is located in between Perryworth Road and Central Avenue, Gateway Drive. It's just to the west of what was recently developed with the multi-tenant retail development, with Hobby Lobby as being the nearest store to this overall property. The hotel is being built on what's going to be Lot 3. Its location will be furthest to the west of the Shops at Anson North development. It'll occupy roughly 3.9 acres. Not all of that acreage is developable. It lies along what was formerly Green Ditch. There's quite a bit of real estate that takes up the area of where the ditch was. 2.5 acres of the property will be improved with the hotel and parking. Approximately 109 parking spaces on the site. With respect to the architecture, we submitted to the town along with approvals from Duke Realty as we went through the approval process for architectural design, materials, colors. Those are listed in the staff report as well. One item I'd like to note is that Drainage Board approval is pending for next Monday. They had a shortened docket in April, obviously because of COVID-19. The surveyor's office chose to consolidate their docket to only primary projects at that time. So we'll be attending the Drainage Board hearing next Monday morning for final approval on this project, as well as the overall Shops at Anson North development for the infrastructure. That is the next petition we'll be hearing before this Plan Commission as well. So one item I would like to also point out on the staff report on the basic site plan that's listed there. We have made some adaptations to that based upon the fire department comments, as well as Whitestown Utilities. The one I do want to focus on is there's going to be an emergency access drive for fire emergency services from the north side of Lot 3 onto Central Boulevard and Gateway Drive. That will be part of the hotel project construction. And at some time later in the future, when the lot is developed to the east of the hotel property, that emergency access drive will be terminated and there will be an internal connection of the site. One other minor item with the site plan was we've added more landscaping area, more internal parking lot landscaping on the south side of the building. In the parking lot, that was a request of Marriott. This project is Fairfield Inn and Suites. We have met, I believe, the zoning requirements for architectural design, site, infrastructure, lighting, and landscaping. I'll be happy to answer any questions specific to the plans, and if needed, I can share my development plans on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item?
You should go to staff report.
Oh, thank you so much. Sorry about that. Staff report. Waiting for Brittany to get unmuted here.
Yes, thank you, Nathan. Staff has reviewed plans and the project is within compliance of the standards of the I-65 Anson PUD.
Thank you. And now is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak?
I have no one through the chat that's requested to speak.
Thank you, sir. Is there anything further from the petitioner at this point? All right, then we'll close the public hearing. Is there discussion, any questions or comments from the board, from the commission?
Just a question on the emergency access at Gateway. Would that be gated? What will that look like? Sorry.
Nathan, can you unmute
Yeah,
Brian? There you go.
Thanks, Nathan. Yes, that actually, the emergency access drive will be gated in 2 locations. Temporary bollards will also be installed at the request of Chief Milstead. So the temporary bollards are removable in case of emergency access. It will be a gate closer to the intersection, which is now Gateway. And we're also adding bollards on internal of the parking lot access. We don't want large vehicles or any other vehicles to block that way. We also have fire emergency access paint to go on the pavement where that access drive comes into the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or discussion? Is there a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve docket PC 20-017-CP Fairfield in Anson North concept plan.
Nope.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, development plan. Sorry.
Second.
Any further discussion? The motion in a second.
Matt Doublestein,
Aye.
Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Lauren Foley,
Aye.
Sarah Ford,
Aye.
Dave Taylor,
Aye.
Danny Powers,
Aye.
Steve Milstead.
Steve is muted. There we go.
Aye.
Item passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on then to item F, docket PC 20-018 DP Shops at Anson North Development Plan. Petitioner?
Hello again, Brian Cross, Civil Site Group, address 160 West Carmel Drive, Suite 240, Carmel, Indiana. This petition, I represent Midland Atlantic Properties as the overall developer, about 12.34 acres. This is the same development where the previously approved petition for the Fairfield Inn and Suites will be divided into 4 commercial lots. This was approved at the April 27th Plan Commission hearing for a primary plat. We have submitted infrastructure design plans for 2 driveway curb cuts, 1 main curb cut for the entire development to bisect the property. That will serve initially, obviously, the hotel site to the northwest corner of the project. And as each individual lot develops, that infrastructure will be continued as far as the drive. Ultimately, it'll be connected into the development to the east, which was done by Realty Link 2 years ago. Again, just as a known building on that property is Hobby Lobby. That's the nearest retail development right next to this overall 12-acre property. So we will be installing infrastructure for drainage, water main extension along Perryworth Road, obviously the curb cuts on Perryworth, and extending sanitary sewer service to lots as needed, along with power and telecom along the west side of the overall development. We've been working with the Boone County Surveyor's Office. Again, we'll be attending the Drainage Board hearing next Monday morning for final approval, addressing their final comments. And that should take care of preliminary information. I'd be happy to answer any questions and share any documents needed on the screen if any questions require.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Staff has reviewed proposed development plan. It is within compliance of the Anson PUD standards. Landscaping and lighting plans and everything else will be reviewed with development plan, and concept and development plan for each lot must be approved through Plan Commission.
Thank you. Nathan, any public requests to speak?
No requests.
Thank you. Then we'll close the public hearing. Is there any question, comment, discussion from the board? I do have a question. Just want to make sure I understand on this site plan here. Does this site connect into Gateway Drive, Central Boulevard in that intersection, or is that intersection independent heading toward the north?
There will
That's
not be
emergency access only?
Yeah, there will be emergency access to the hotel site only. It'll be temporary until Lot 4 is developed with a concept plan and development plan specific to Lot 4. The intent there is to turn that driveway and go directly east and tie into the pavement behind Hobby Lobby.
So if I understand correctly, so those lots will each then have to come in for concept and development plans in front of this commission. Correct. Is that correct? Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. Thank you.
I just wanted to note too that there will be pedestrian connectivity from Central down to Perryworth Road with their internal sidewalk. That is correct, right, Brian?
That is correct. There will be a sidewalk built on the initial phase along the west side of the driveway tying into Perryworth Road. That's along Lot 1. The hotel development on Lot 3 will continue that walk and make it tie the pedestrian connectivity into the intersection that's currently there, Gateway and Central.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve docket PC 20-018-DP shops at Anson North Development Plan.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Matt Doublestein.
Aye.
Andrew McGee.
Aye.
Lauren Foley.
Aye.
Sarah Ford.
Aye.
Danny Powers.
Aye.
Dave Taylor.
Aye.
Steve Milstead.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Item passes 7-0. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item letter G, PC 20-020 Circle K Remodel Development Plan.
Roger has been unmuted.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Roger D. Hook, and I'm Real Estate Development Manager with Circle K. Address is 4080 West Jonathan Moore Pike, Columbus, Indiana. We're here tonight to get approval for our development plan. The goal of the project is to do basically a whole raise and rebuild of the facility at 6416 Whitestown Parkway, the northeast corner of Perryworth Road and Whitestown Parkway. Also with me tonight is Bob Wellert, our civil engineer with Wellert Corporation, and Kevin Kirchner, who's also a real estate development manager with Circle K. We plan to tear down a 3,700 square foot building and replace it with a 5,200 square foot building. We're going to take down the existing gas canopy that has 4 multiple product dispensers and replace it with 7. Instead of having semi-parking scattered throughout the site, we're going to have a diesel fuel position and with 5 temporary semi-parking spaces. The goal of the project is to tear down a awful looking building and replace it with a very nice building that complements the nice buildings in the neighborhood. At this point, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If they're technical in nature, then Bob Weller can step in to answer any civil type questions.
Thank you. Staff report.
Staff comments, fuel dealer is a special exception within the general business zoning. Circle K is within compliance per their zoning use. Remodeling this building will bring the current building to meet the current design standards of the area. Circle K meets all the development standard requirements for the current building and proposed future building. And just wanted to make one note, as we had discussed for the concept plan, they will not have access off of, we show on off of the Perryworth Road.
So, sorry, you said there, what we're looking at, there won't be access then, right?
No, they changed their site plan. They have access off of Whitestown Parkway and Mills Drive, but that side access, they will not have that.
Okay.
Thank you. Any public requests to speak?
I do have one public comment.
Thank you. Would you mind reading that?
So this public comment has been submitted by Jeff Poole with Realty Link. He says, Plan Commission, we're the developer of the shops at Whitestown adjacent to the north of Circle K property and are enthusiastic about their interest in capital redevelopment. With their contemplated redevelopment, we request that there be a prohibition towards overnight and or long-term semi-truck parking on Circle K's site. We think of Whitestown Parkway east of the I-65 interchange as a town's front door. We've noticed semi-trucks and trailers parked for extended times at Circle K, constructing view corridors. It's possible that the expansion of Circle K building in and of itself might preclude this continued practice. It would also seem semi-trucks, trailers may be better served parking on the northwest quarter of the I-65 interchange where there seems to be space to accommodate such practice at the TA Travel Center facility. This request is by no means in opposition to Circle K's petition, but to supplement to same.
I also have a comment from a Joe Cooney. As stated, my wife and I are concerned about access on South Perryworth Road affecting the traffic off of Whitestown Parkway. This area already has issues with traffic currently.
Thank you.
I believe the comment that Nathan read, they probably took a look at the staff report that did show the previous proposed site plan with the access off of Perryworth Road close to the roundabout. That is being removed. They will have the current access that they have right now off of Whitestown Parkway as well as Mills Drive.
Thank you. I will close the public hearing. Anyone speak to the other questions submitted about overnight parking?
The semi-parking is going to be temporary. It will not be overnight parking.
How is that enforced, whether by town or internally by Circle K?
Well, we'll start with the Circle K internally in signage.
What does temporary mean? Like, 4 hours, 6 hours? Is there a time limit to what temporary means?
That will have to be determined. We just don't want this turning into a truck stop. So we don't want overnight parking.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do we have any ordinance with respect to that overnight parking in this area? Not certain. Do we have anything from the town?
I don't believe we have a specific ordinance regarding overnight parking, but I think that if we put up signs, we could definitely work with Circle K to try to enforce that there's no overnight parking.
Great. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
I think it's great. I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We do.
Agree. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve PC 20-020-DP Circle K remodel development plan.
I second.
Matt Doublestein,
Aye.
Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Lauren Foley,
Aye.
Sarah Ford,
Aye.
Dave Taylor,
Aye.
Deanie Powers,
Aye.
Steve Milstead.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item H. We do have items H and I that are about Tractor Supply. You can hear those. I'd love to hear the presentation together, but we will need separate motions on them since they are in separate items here and we didn't combine them. So is the presenter ready for PC 20-021 CP Tractor Supply concept and development plans?
I had Greg Dempsey on this one. I think his phone has died. I'm going to unmute Jerry Kittle, who's also with that group, and hopefully he has contact. You there, Jerry?
Yeah. Actually, this is Greg. I just kind of commandeered Jerry's laptop here. We were in the same office, so I apologize for that. I'm Greg Dempsey, Innovative Engineering, 3961 Perry Boulevard. Here to talk about the Tractor Supply concept and development plans. The site is located between Indianapolis Road and Tradition Drive. This is opposite the Whitestown Water Tower, near the I-65 and State Road 267 interchange. It's also known as Lot 14 of the crossings at Whitestown Section 2. The site is zoned GB. The proposed Tractor Supply store is an allowable use under the current zoning. However, we have requested 3 variances from the BZA. Just briefly, these were for a reduction in the required parking to allow for a trailer display and sales area. We've asked to remove the buffer yard along the access road, or what was formerly Indianapolis Road. It's now an access drive along the north property line, and to allow for a larger sign to help fit better with Tractor Supply's typical signage. The variances were scheduled to be heard this past Thursday at the BZA meeting. That meeting was unfortunately postponed. The proposed site will consist of an approximately 19,000 square foot retail building with associated parking. There will also be approximately 15,000 square feet fenced outdoor display area attached to the building. As mentioned previously, there will also be a small trailer display and sales area located in the parking area, as well as some smaller outside display areas along the front of the building. Site access will be from Indianapolis Road, Tradition Drive, and the former Indianapolis Road, now private access drive. All utilities are already available to the site, so there won't be any main extensions required. And we anticipate receiving drainage board approval at Monday's May 18th Drainage Board meeting. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or try and address any concerns you have. And also to note, Dave Howitz is also on the meeting. He could speak on behalf of Tractor Supply if there's any questions that need to go his way.
All right, thank you. Staff report.
Okay. So this vote will need to be contingent upon the variances that they are requesting that was supposed to be heard on 5/7. The 3 variance was, as Greg mentioned, a variance from the general business buffer yard requirements, removing buffer yard along the north property line, a variance for the parking requirement to reduce the parking requirement by 15 spaces. This will allow for a trailer display and sales area. With that, it also will allow, if need be, the spaces can be striped and used in the future. And another variance requesting from the sign height requirement. Other than those 3 variances, the site and building is within compliance.
Thank you. Any public request to speak?
I had 1 public comment. So I have a letter from a Jeff Thompson. He is the Executive Vice President of Timothy Trailers. His letter states, we have been notified of a petition for variances related to the proposed construction of a Tractor Supply at 4000 South Indianapolis Road near a Tempe facility. I am writing this morning in support of the project as well as the variances. Tempe believes that the addition of Tractor Supply enhances the overall development in this area and that they would be a very complementary business to ours. We do not have any concerns with the variances that they have requested.
Thank you. Now on the public request, public portion of this public comment. So Mr. Jacob.
Thank you, members of the Plan Commission. My name is Jeff Jacob. Again, for the record, I'm an attorney with Hackman Hewlett with offices located at 1620 West Oak Street. I am again speaking this evening on behalf of Candace Smith and her son Kyle Wormuth. They are property owners along the south side of 400 South. First and foremost, I do appreciate the need to move projects ahead, but in light of the continued meeting from last week in front of the BZA, we believe that this matter is just a little premature being heard from a not only concept plan, but also development plan standpoint. So we would ask that this be heard after the BZA considers the variances. That having been said, my client's concerns go to just buffering her property and traffic flow along Indianapolis Road and delivery traffic in and out of the site and light mitigation into the back of the residences. One of the variances requested is to reduce the buffer yard requirements along the north property line, which will have a direct impact on those properties. So those are the height of their concerns. No problem with the business concept. Again, we would want to move the loading dock and delivery and outdoor storage as far away from the residential uses as possible. But again, we believe that this request for approval, even subject to BZA or contingent upon BZA approval, is a little premature. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll close the public hearing. I'm sorry, any closing remarks? Well, any closing remarks from the petitioner? I'm sorry.
Sorry, you were breaking up. Did you put that back to us?
Sure. Any closing remarks? Is there anything you'd like to address from the public comments?
Yeah. Is it possible to bring up the site plan from the staff report? Might be a little easier to kind of explain. Because the landscape buffer that we were requesting, we're calling it the north property line, but it's actually not the property line that runs parallel to Indianapolis Road. We are actually working with staff to be able to bump up the landscape buffering along Indianapolis Road, in part because of the concerns the attorney had just mentioned. Tractor Supply does want to buffer that side of their building more than what the ordinance requires. So like I said, we are working with staff to make that happen. As far as the lighting requirements, a lighting plan has been done. It does meet the Whitestown requirements. It will all be downlight. There will be little, if any, light spillage even into the right of way, much less reaching the adjacent properties, which are some distance away. They're actually on the other side of Indianapolis Road, across the pond, and then some distance onto the property to get to those residences. Removing the buffer, it's along the access road. It will only be buffering a like use that would be possibly constructed in the future. It's the property line that actually parallels I-65. So removing that buffer will really not have any impact on the residents.
So to be clear, your request about the buffer is to the northeast, and Indianapolis Road is to the northwest in the direction of the residents. Is that correct? Do I have my directions correct?
Yes. Yes, I think that's correct. It would be the shortest section of the property. Because you have the long edge along Indianapolis Road, the long edge along Tradition Drive, and then the short along the access drive there. It's the short segment of the property that we've requested the removal of the buffer.
Commission members, are you able to see that?
I'm trying to work on that right now.
But the orientation of the site's it's just not the straightforward north, south, east, west, unfortunately. But while Brittany's working on that, we can touch a little bit on the traffic. When Indianapolis Road was designed to be relocated where it's at now, it was designed in the anticipation that this whole area would basically be retail and office use. Obviously, the uses that have gone in there are considerably less traffic than what would be generated through what the road was designed to handle. So really at this point, the road is a little over-designed for the uses that are coming into this area. So traffic should not be an issue.
I guess I just don't see, I mean, I'm looking here closely at this, and I looked at it earlier. I mean, the residences are not very close to this site. So they're, yeah. I mean, and I've driven around there, so they're not very close to this site.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we approve a 44,000 square foot building across the street from this?
Yes.
And that would probably help buffer our lights and whatnot from that?
Yes.
That site is actually just south of this.
So I'm sharing my screen. I hope that you all can see it. This is from the BZA staff report. As you can see, where Indianapolis Road is kind of to the northwest. That is more towards where the residents are. Whereas if you look on the northeast where it says variance to remove required buffer yard, that is closer to 65. I am also working with Tractor Supply as well as Innovative, and they are actually working to adding some more shrubs and some more screening to the back of the building along Indianapolis Road. But the variance request is remove buffer along the side that I-65 is towards.
So Matt, you were right. The residents are to the northwest. That driveway on the other side goes to the water tower.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So we're here in the discussion portion. Is there any other discussion or question, comment from the commission?
I have a question real quick. I'm going to throw in there. Mr. Molitor, is there any issue with the commission going forward with a vote on this, even though the BZA has not met over the variances? Is there any legal issue with us doing that? I would assume not, since it's on the agenda, but I just want to ask you.
There's nothing in either state law or the ordinance that says whether the Plan Commission or the BZA has to go first when they both have applications before them that affect the same development. Certainly in this case, any approval from the Plan Commission would have to be subject to the BZA's later approval of the variances. But I don't see a legal problem with you doing it that way if that's your decision.
Okay, thank you.
Apologize for the echo. We're going to try and address that, even though we're this far into the meeting. Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to, pending the variance approval from BZA, I'll make a motion to approve PC 20-021-CP Tractor Supply Concept Plan.
Thank you. And yes, we do need one for each. So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Sorry. Yeah.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
Matt Doublestein,
Aye.
Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Lauren Foley,
Aye.
Sarah Ford,
Aye.
Dave Taylor,
Aye.
Danny Powers,
Aye.
Steve Milstead.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. And indeed, thank you, Mr. McGee. Is there a motion now on the development plan?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make that motion for pending variance approval from BZA to approve PC 20-022-DP Tractor Supply Development Plan.
Second.
Any further discussion? Motion and second.
Matt Doublestein,
Aye.
Andrew McGee,
Aye.
Lauren Foley,
Aye.
Sarah Ford,
Aye.
Dave Taylor,
Aye.
Danny Powers,
Aye.
Steve Milstead.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Thank you. Moving on then to our final agenda item, PC 20-026. Sorry, our final new business item. 026-ZA 4736 Main Street. Is the petitioner ready?
Matt, I would like to make an announcement real quick on this.
Sure.
Speaking with petitioner, I just would like to make an amendment to part of my staff report. As you can see, there is an image showing the site plan. It does show a school. That was one of the earlier proposed plans that they had. They have removed that to show another building in the same area, and it is a 4,900 square foot building, but it does not have the school use. And just a reminder to everyone that this that we're hearing tonight is for a rezone, rezoning the property from ag to general business. We are not making a motion on the development that could possibly take place there, just strictly making a motion on to rezone the property for this use.
And am I correct? That would be a recommendation on the rezone. Right, Brittany?
Yes, we are making either a positive or negative recommendation to the council to rezone the property.
Thank you.
So we don't have the final decision in that. The council does. Correct?
Correct. We just make a recommendation.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure that was clear for everybody.
All right. Sounds like the petitioner is unmuted.
Good evening. My name is Justin Kingen with Neighborhood Downtown Zoning Assistance. My address is 618 East Market Street, Indianapolis, Indiana 46202. Here on behalf of Christopher Brower, who is the property owner, 4736 South Main Street, which is located on the northwest corner of East 500 South and South Main Street. Mr. Brower and his wife Caitlin bought this property late last year with the intention of developing the site into a small neighborhood commercial site, which would be the future location of her pediatric dental office. We believe that a rezone to the general business classification would allow for this type of development of small neighborhood commercial use, and that not only follows the intent of the Whitestown Comprehensive Plan, but would also be an asset to the surrounding community. Just as Brittany mentioned, we have submitted a revised site plan. I believe our previous plan had approximately 73 parking places. Our latest one has 64 with ingress, egress off of South Main Street. And as she mentioned, we are now showing the proposed dental office of 4,900 square feet and the potential for a future building on the northern end of the site also being 4,900 square feet. We have reviewed the staff reports, are in agreement with their comments. We do understand that before further developing the site, we will be required to obtain development plan approval from the commission. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Also, the property owner, Christopher Brower, is on the call as well, and we'll be happy to chime in if any additional information is needed.
Thank you. Staff report.
Staff comments. The rezone process is a legislative act. Plan Commission will make a recommendation to the town council, who then has the final say. Because this is a legislative act, Plan Commission can require that certain commitments be made part of the rezone and then will run with the land. Before being further developed, project will require a development plan approval by the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission should maintain and enforce the zoning ordinance, subdivision control ordinance, and related ordinances in order to achieve the goals of the comprehensive plan. The proposed zoning, general business zoning, allows for a variety of uses, specific setbacks, landscaping, and buffer yard requirements. The proposed use does follow the intent of the Whitestown Comprehensive Plan in regards to part of the Special Development Area 7.
Thank you.
And then Matt, I do have quite a few public comments that I received via email.
Great. I see one here as well. Can we start with yours, Brittany?
Yes. So the first comment that I will read was submitted by an Alicia Johnson. Her comment in regards to this rezone is that the current site plan does not show sidewalks along Main Street. A sidewalk should connect East 500 South and run parallel to Main Street to improve walking and biking options. By connecting to East 500 South, this provides a safer option to connect to the Manors and Harvest Park. A crosswalk would need to be added on the east side of Main Street across from the proposed development, and then in parentheses, probably at the city's cost, in parentheses. This will then allow access to a new park at Walker Farms once improvements are completed on development under construction. I have another public comment from a Cameron Norman. Cameron says, has the Plan Commission taken into consideration how zoning this area general business and building facilities and offices will add to traffic congestion to an already bottlenecked Main Street and potentially affect driver safety? Also, the County Road 500 South and Main Street intersection is already dangerous given the roadway elevation changes both north and south of this intersection. Commercial buildings to the north of this intersection, along with parked cars in the parking lot, will decrease visibility and increase danger of vehicles trying to exit onto Main Street. I understand the financial gain of rezoning this parcel to the general business, but I hope the commission is taking into account the safety of residents and traffic consequences if this change is made. I have one from Kate Topol. Kate says, question number 1, how is the flood risk going to be addressed on that lot? At least once a year, that lot is flooded. And question 2 is, how is traffic on Main Street going to be addressed if the lot is going to be used for small retails, both during and post-construction? Currently, going from East 500 South to Main Street is not easy. The turn is narrow and hard to see incoming traffic from Main Street. Will additional traffic from Edmonds Creek neighborhood, it will only be more difficult to go through that intersection. And question 3 that Kate has is, how has the impact to the river/creek caused by the development been assessed? And then I have one more from a resident who wished to remain anonymous. Basically, their summary is that they are a Harvest Park resident. They are expressing concerns that at certain times of the day, it is hard to pull out of the Harvest Park neighborhood and add businesses would only make it worse and undesirable. They believe that the growth of Whitestown at sometimes has become undesirable, and they are concerned with the growth to the north of town and concerned for the screening that the Harvest Park residents will face who are directly across from that, as well as a traffic concern on Main Street.
I see 2 additional items here in the chat. Nathan, do you want to read those or shall I?
That'd be up to you. I can if you'd like. So we have, let me circle back to them. So from, I'm missing the end of the name. I think it's Philip Snowberg. I can't see the end of the name, but so with regard to item J on agenda, I would like to know if there's been any consideration given to increase traffic on Main Street and how that will affect the intersection of Main Street and 500 South. And we have from Joe Cooney, the current zoning does not allow for the businesses to be located here and residents move to this area with that understanding. This changes a slippery slope to allowing more development for CR 500 South as well as outside of designated zones, thinking specifically of Morning Dev property on CR 500 South, which is now for sale. This will place additional traffic concerns on Main Street as well as 500 South, especially during rush hour times. Lastly, the development of the area for business will impact homes in the adjacent Pulte subdivisions, both east and southwest, from an asset valuation and deters new homeowner investment. This was not the original intended purpose of this property. This property should not be rezoned.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments? Anything further from the petitioner?
I guess just one thing I'd like to point out, our latest site plan does show, in regards to the sidewalk comment, our latest site plan does show a sidewalk going down the eastern property line from the north to the south side of the site. In regards to traffic and drainage and ingress egress, I think that's something that we'll definitely take into consideration as we move forward with the site development portion of this plan, and be as sensitive to the surrounding properties as we can be, while again bringing a small commercial use to the area. This we do not intend for this to be a high traffic site. It's going to be developed with a small office building that would operate during normal business hours. You won't have any late hours or anything like that. And again, we would expect that this would be a pretty low traffic in and out site. So those were the only comments that we'd like to add at this point.
Thank you. All right, move on to commission discussion. Any questions, comments, discussion in the commission?
The school is, or the daycare school is taken out. Do you have an idea of what that building could potentially be used for?
At this point in time, we're yet to dial in a final site plan, but at this point in time, we anticipate just simply having the dental office, the proposed dental office on the site. There was discussions early on in the process with a potential school of going on this site, but as though those discussions progressed, it just didn't become feasible to include both the school and the small office building on the site. So that's kind of taken a back seat. Of course, we'll have to get that dialed in by the time we go to the site development approval portion of everything. But I would imagine that will probably be taken off the table.
So for our purposes, the existing zoning allows for farm, seasonal worker housing, hay, grain, feed stores, plant nursery, church, sale barn for livestock, with a minimum open space of 50%. And this new change would allow for single family or two family dwellings, as well as group residential facility, daycare center, small kennel, or medical office.
So is a traffic study out of the question for this? Because right now, our traffic flow is very low considering what's going on. And once everybody goes back to work, we all know Main Street's a very busy thoroughfare. It's a main line going north and south. And with the increasing residential on 500, before we move forward with this?
Sorry, is that for me or was that for?
It's a general question for, you, the committee. Is it out of the question for that, or is this would not be necessary, so to speak?
Justin, do you have an anticipated amount of traffic for the dentist office that you're expecting to see?
I would say on average 50 cars a day, but spread out over 8-9 hours. So we'd be looking at 6 to 7 an hour, let's say. But I'd say probably a rough number would be 50 cars a day.
I will say we have looked at the intersection of 500 and Main Street and different intersection upgrades as they'll be warranted, and we would ask that the petitioner would dedicate us the required right-of-way and or utility easements required to improve the intersection in the future when it is warranted.
Yeah, I guess from my standpoint, I think, obviously the traffic, you pull out of there, it's hard to see going both directions. If you drive on that road and you pull out, everyone realizes it's difficult to see there because of the way that the road is laid out. And I think also, we tried, it's been a challenge, but we've tried to keep that rural kind of residential charm at some level. I think we have to think about if it makes sense. I'm not sure it makes sense. And it's not a situation where, it's already zoned that way. So we have to decide whether it fits or not, or if it legally fits in there. The reality is we can make a recommendation to rezone this or not. And I'm not sure that it makes sense. And I don't think that about a whole lot of things. You guys know from my previous experience on here, but for this particular project, I don't think it makes sense. Just to be real honest. And I think that pulling out of there is really difficult. Now, I know it's not a huge amount of cars at this point, excuse me, at this point. But it is something to think about. But I think we also have to think about if it makes sense. And I'm just not sure in that particular space that it does.
Is this something we have to decide on tonight?
Yes, we do need to make a recommendation to town council tonight.
John.
Well, not to contradict Brittany, but you do have control over your own docket here, as long as you make a recommendation of the town council within a reasonable period of time. If you do think that you need additional time to study this, then that would be within your discretion.
Sarah, can I make sure I understand what you're saying? You feel like the rezone doesn't make sense, or you feel like what exists doesn't make sense?
No, I feel like the rezone doesn't make sense in this particular circumstance.
Yeah.
I think it defeats the purpose of what, we try to accomplish with residential and business. And I just don't think it makes sense to fill that corner with the business, to be honest, that particular spot. And I also think it's very difficult to pull out of there.
That's a very scary.
Yeah,
I live close.
Granted, more people would be turning right. And that's easier than turning left. So I get that, but I think, I think that's
it's a very scary location, and I'm typically on my bike. I agree with that. One thing I noticed is that in that comprehensive plan, it does have some language about the specific area and give some examples of some neighborhood retail uses. It makes me think of, I don't know if this is useful for discussion, but it makes me think of the dentist office location there near the Stonegate neighborhood, not the one in town, but the one there across from the IU facility. It appears to me to be the kind of description that we're talking about. And I guess I realize that the development and the plan and all of that is separate from the rezone. If that's useful for anyone, it strikes me as maybe something that we could visualize.
Matt, I've got two things real quick. First is that with the rezones, just so the commission knows, one thing about the rezone is we do have the ability to add commitments for this that would run with the land. So when we can make a commitment for this property, that will be for whatever development will go further. I also do have to apologize because I did receive one public comment that I did forget to read. It was kind of hard to keep track of some of the emails, but if you don't mind, I have one comment that was submitted from a resident named Julie, and I will go ahead and read her comment. Again, I apologize for not reading this earlier. But the statement that Julie made is that her and her husband looked for a new home for more than 2 years before they finally decided that Whitestown is where they wanted to be. They love the small feeling of Whitestown. Their neighbors are more than they could have hoped for, and they appreciate the leadership this community has had the last few years. It has been the fastest growing community for some time. One reason they enjoy Whitestown is they have felt that they can participate in the community and growth. In no other place that they live, that has not been the case. While growth is inevitable, the fact that it has not been on top of the residential areas has been very important. They have absolutely no desire to see the rezoning of this area approved. They purchased their lot exactly where they did because it oversees Main Street and the nature behind them. Knowing this area was zoned agriculture was a huge plus for many of them and many of the residents when they built their homes. There are plenty other areas around Whitestown that are better suited for commercial development that will not impede on the residents of the area and become an eyesore to their back doors. Their questions are, if it was approved, which is not the desire of the majority in the area, what will be required of the developer to protect the land, nature, and the view? They did not purchase homes out there to have businesses move in behind them. They purchased for the country feel. And if approved, this development would definitely increase traffic in the area, especially during peak traffic times. Considering the school, Main Street already has a high volume of traffic. What's the plan for increased traffic and pedestrian bike traffic? They do not have a safe way for pedestrians or bike riders to travel from Harvest Park to Boone Meadow and Anson and so on with this elaborate issue.
I'm kind of in agreement with Sarah. It doesn't really make sense. It's plopping a commercial building right down in the middle of a residential community. I'm kind of struggling with it myself.
But I'm just thinking at some point, someone is going to request it. Being along Main Street, I don't know how long it will remain agricultural. Maybe now's not the time, but I'm just putting it out there that down that major arterial, so much residential. I don't know that it's going to remain. It would remain agricultural forever. Not saying now's the time, but
right.
If I might make a suggestion, we would be open to continuing this case to next month's meeting if the commission would prefer to think about it some more, or if there's commitments that they'd like to see us include as part of this rezone. We'd be open to doing a traffic study. So we're kind of flexible at this point. We're willing to continue this out. We don't want to, force this through. We want to be considerate of everybody involved. So if the commission feels like another month is best served by continuing this, then we're open to that, or any other suggestions you may have at this point.
John, you may help me out here. I know that we have done it in some situations before where we have done a small review committee with some of the members. That is an option, or like the petitioner is suggesting, to continue. I think that there are quite a few questions regarding, buffering and landscaping. There's traffic concerns. I've had inquiries about the floodway, and with it being a rezone, it is an opportunity for the commission to talk and maybe review more to see if they would like to make commitments to help to help feel the residents' needs or work a little bit more with the petitioner. So just two things to keep in mind if the committee would like to review this further and do a review committee, or if they would like to have time to individually review it further or reach out to the petitioner and continue it.
It would be in your discretion, members of the commission, to create a review committee, perhaps to assign 3 of you to meet between now and next month's meeting, meet with Brittany and the developer, and even perhaps if there are representatives of the neighborhood that's across the street. I don't want to volunteer any of you unless you're willing to serve, though.
I would be part of that. I'd like to look into this a little bit further.
Well, Mr. President, if you can get 3 volunteers, perhaps you can appoint a review committee to have a meeting between now and next month.
Is that the desire of the commission, or is there, I guess, because that would also involve continuing, right? So that would require us not to vote on this tonight.
I think it depends on if we want, and just to be clear, I do not live in a home that is adjacent to this property. Just FYI. Okay, so I do not live in one of those subdivisions. But I think it depends on if we feel comfortable sending it to the council or not, or if we think meeting is going to change our thoughts enough to, I mean, is meeting, you know, a few of us together going to change thoughts on it enough for it to be worth waiting to go to the council? Because ultimately it's up to the council. They take our recommendation and they roll with it or they don't. So I guess that's my thoughts on it.
So the petitioner would also have the option to withdraw the petition at this point too, right? And they could resubmit.
They can request to continue it if they wish so.
They could certainly withdraw if they want to withdraw it and consider some other proposal and bring it back at a later time. Up until the point in time when a motion has been made and a vote is called for, they would have the right to withdraw it.
I would make the recommendation to the commission that if you are fine with everything as is, that you would make a motion. If you think that there needs to be some commitments that run with the land or run with the property, or some issues need to be addressed that the residents brought up, that you go forward with a review committee just to make sure all those answers are addressed, or you deny the petition. But I think either you make a motion or a positive recommendation if you're fine with as is. If you think that some things still need to be addressed, I would make the recommendation to continue and do a review committee, or you have the option to give a unfavorable recommendation to council.
Any further comment or discussion? I certainly don't feel for myself, I'm not sure that I feel comfortable with a favorable recommendation at this point. I don't know that how much
well, it's just our
energy.
recommendation.
Okay, go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
It's just a recommendation. Like Brittany said, council has the final word.
Is there a critical mass? Are there 3 who would like to study further? If there are not 3 who would like to study further, then it would seem that a study group would not be fruitful.
I would just ask for a motion.
All right, then is there a motion?
I make a motion that on PC 20-026-ZA 4736 Main Street, we make an unfavorable, what's the word?
Recommendation.
We make an unfavorable recommendation to the council.
I second that.
Is there any further discussion?
Sorry.
I didn't hear you. Brittany, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said there.
Oh, I just asked for a second. I'm sorry. I was trying to make notes for meeting.
All right, so there's hearing no further discussion. There's a motion and a second. And again, just to state it for everyone, this is a motion to provide an unfavorable recommendation. Aye.
Andrew McGee.
Aye.
Ron Floyd. Aye.
Sarah Ford.
Aye.
Dave Taylor.
Aye.
Danny Powers.
Aye.
Steve Milstead.
Aye.
And motion passes 7-0.
So this will be going for the residents that are watching. We have given an unfavorable recommendation to town council. What that means is that it still will go to town council, who ultimately will have the final say whether they approve to, or whether they make a motion to approve or deny it is now up to town council. And this will not be at the town council meeting on Wednesday. This will go to the town council meeting in June. I believe it's going to be June 10th.
Brittany, thank you. Seeing nothing else under new business, are there any other business announcements from staff or otherwise? Yes, John.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and members of the commission. I would just notify you that the governor's executive orders, which allow for these virtual meetings, currently they will expire on June the 4th. And so unless that's extended, this would be the last virtual meeting we could have. But I think there's a chance that the governor would extend that and allow for further virtual meetings into the summer. But we'll just have to wait and see. If he does not, then our next meeting would have to be a live meeting back at the town hall.
Thank you for that. Would we be able to institute some distancing practices even if we're compelled to meet live?
Yeah, so as of now, Whitestown, we do not have a date. We are going to remain closed until further notice, just to take safety precautions. We have had correspondence that might be in the middle of June. So if we do come to a point where we are meeting, we will make sure if we are meeting live that we are doing our best and staying social distancing to keep all of you safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Brittany, do you have to poll us on adjournment?
John, do I need to do that for adjournment?
No, you can take a voice vote.
All right.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. We stand adjourned.
Good to see you all.
Thank
Good to see you.
you.